My name is James Moran, and I pose a challenge to the non-dual community, the community of non-duality. And that challenge to the non-dual community is the challenge to accept as one of the ultimate practices of non-duality, the practice of astrology. So you may think to yourself, well, if I'm attributing something to some influence outside of myself, some celestial body that's wielding some influence over me, then that's actually really that impulse originates in the sense of a person, in a sense of kind of like a personal identity that's looking for something. It's looking for an explanation for why things the way they are, that's kind of in defense of the personal identity. So astrology actually in its deepest sense is not that. It's the sense that when we look outside and we look at the celestial bodies, so in true non-duality, there is not actually like an outside. There's an outside world, and then there's an inside world. That would be kind of a curtain of division existing between the inner and outer. So in true sense of non-duality, when I look outside and I look at the external space, of course it would be reflective of my inner experience of reality, because it's actually kind of one continuum. There's no division there. The outer reflects the inner reflects the outer. There's actually no division. So this is the actual depth of the practice of astrology, is that when we look at the sky, we look at the celestial bodies and we create kind of a map. There's different ways of looking at that map, which are basically a map to our psyches, a map to our lives. So something that I've noticed in the non-dual community, which you may or may not have noticed, is that there can be a tendency to go towards a kind of a neutrality, a kind of what seems in my mind, in my interpretation, to be kind of like a intellectual understanding of non-duality that is kind of like shellacked over life. So it's like the sense of the person, is the sense of a personal identity is a story, it's a construct. And so as such, the pleasures that come from life are, just a result of that construct. The ups and downs are a result of that construct. So intellectually knowing that, what I do is I kind of get into a neutralizing stance, and in a sense of kind of like sterilizing life. Ups and downs. Oh, you're up. Oh, that's just the personal identity asserting itself. Ignorance. Oh, you're down. That's just the personal identity asserting itself. You see beauty, you interpret it as beautiful, positivity, sadness. We've got to neutralize these things. So that's something I see in the non-dual community. It becomes quite boring. It becomes very flat. It becomes somewhat nihilistic. It becomes a kind of a neutralized way of being that doesn't express the true profundity of bliss that is inherent in the human nature, when the human nature returns to its true, when the human experience returns to its true core nature. The bliss that's there, it's not really honored in this atmosphere of kind of almost like robotic, neutral, hollow, non-dual approach to non-duality. So yet with that approach, we might say, well, why would the stars outside reflect something about us? Even if there is some sense that there's no division, that when we look out at the starscape, we are looking at ourselves, we are looking at our life, there's no division there. Why would it be helpful to us? Why would it reflect some benevolent message to us? Well, actually, if somebody does really get in touch with their fundamental nature, they tend to have a kind of a positive emotional response to life that is an outpouring of positive, supportive sentiments of compassion, um, sympathetic joy. You know, if the Buddha became the Buddha and discovered the truth of no self, and then was in a kind of a neutral stance towards life, then the Buddha would not have spent his entire life just helping and serving others, just out of the joy of being able to help others and the joy of being able to participate in other people's happiness. So there's something fundamental in the human being that is actually, once we connect with our core nature, it's not neutral. It's not, it's actually very, can be a very impassioned sense of love for life, love for other individuals, a sense of sympathetic joy. When others feel joy, we feel so happy, we feel so joyful. So this, because when we look at the starscape, we look at the landscape of our life here on Earth, we look at the starscape, there isn't division. We are looking at life. We are looking at our lives. There is no inner outer. So similarly, when we look at the human nature and we see that in the nature of humankind, when we get in touch with that kind of connection point to our true nature within, from which flows all these beautiful acts of human kindness, we realize that that is a characteristic of the human being that it would make sense would then be echoed in the universe, in the external landscape, in the starscape. It's not, it's actually a characteristic of life. If it's a characteristic in the microcosm of the human, why wouldn't it be a characteristic in the macroscape of life? And so that characteristic in life is that when we're born, we are born with a map. We're born with a map. We're born with a map to the terrain of our psyche and our life, and it's given to us benevolently. It's given to us when we understand that map. It's so helpful in our lives. It's so helpful in our lives. That's benevolence. That's who did that? Who did that? This, why would the stars reflect the inner terrain? Why would the stars reflect our psyche? Why would they give us a map? It's a benevolent act that we are born with kind of a cheat sheet. It's not like we're the greatest American hero, that show from the 1980s where the gentleman has a superpower, but he obtains the superpower without obtaining the manual of how to use it. So he fumbles through his superpower. We also have superpowers, but we're born with a manual, and that's called the astrological birth chart. So my name is James Moran. I'm an archetypal astrologer. I'm going to be running an integration circle using astrology, archetypal astrology, as the primary integration tool this summer of 2023. Check out the details below. And you can also hear a few words here from previous people who have been through the archetypal, paradigm shift integration circle. So check that out right here.
The way I learn is through experience mostly. And so I've tried reading things and listening to things, but actually being able to see the way you work with my chart and other people's charts, it's starting to sink in more. I'm starting to really be able to look at patterns. I'm also finding that it's extending to everyone I meet, whether it's people I work with professionally or it's family, whatever. I'm much more curious about, okay, let's look at your chart.
So I'm not an astrologer, and I don't aspire to be one, but I definitely have always known the value of using astrology, but I didn't understand anything about what Groff brought to psychedelics in terms of astrology. The other, I don't even know the other teacher that you mentioned. I still don't know his name. So that was so helpful. And that whole, description of the birth process and understanding that in the context of the archetype of the planets, I think that was really all helpful to me, to learn that as a resource, and have a much more depth of knowledge. I also, I had no idea what I didn't know. And I now understand your depth, James, and what you bring to this. And I'm really admire that, your dedication and skill.
Regarding the format, I really appreciated how you were so open-hearted, like, and openly ready to respond to any kind of inquiry that people brought. So whether it was like a low stakes question or a high stakes question, whether it was like you know, a thematic question or a very like time specific question, like I just felt like you responded to every curiosity and inquiry with like the same enthusiasm, and being able to then kind of witness and hear like quite a range of reflections or a range of topics that all like everyone was bringing, and hear you reflect on them helped to create for me like a sense of like just like yeah the depth and breadth of how this is so relevant.
So again, my name is James Moran. I'm archetypal astrologer, and I invite you to join the Paradigm Shift Integration Circle. It's a small group. You're going to get your own personal archetypal astrology reading. We get 7 group calls in which we get to celebrate this map that life has given us. We get to elucidate it. We get to see how it helps us over the course of our life. And if you wish, also, you can have lifetime access to my fundamentals course. You can learn how to practice it yourself. So check it out below. I look forward to meeting you in the Paradigm Shift Integration Circle. Thank you so much.